Hello, trading is closed on April 2nd, 2015. I'm Jeffrey Tennant. Let's start out with my last calls. I had a mejt target of 2052.87. What happened to that? Well, these are futures, and the overnight low in futures was 2044, which is equivalent to 2052.37 cash. 2052.37 is darn close to that. Unfortunately for the system, even though the price had relevance overnight, the system requires the price to print during regular trading hours. So that has not worked yet. I said erroneously that it was most likely to print by today. We actually have until early Monday when trading resumes for the price to print within its preferred time frame. So for this to work, we're going to need a big drop early Monday. I also said that I thought if we didn't have a gap over this high, that I thought lower prices would print it sometime during the day. It certainly worked in futures, but I can't count this little dip into the negative here as sufficient to satisfy the prediction. And I also said that I wouldn't be surprised if we closed little change. I think 7.25 points is more than just a little, so I can't really count that either. But if we have a gap down Monday, I would excuse myself, say it was close enough. During the day, we had a drop early on, which mejt said was false and targeted a return to 2070.36. We'll come back to that. Gave an ultimate sell signal in the afternoon, said the rally was false. We satisfied the signal by the bare minimum. Now, here's where life gets interesting. The target was 2070.36. We got as high as 2070.31. That's close enough to satisfy the target. The target of 2070.36 normally prints anyway, but it doesn't have to, making it optional. Furthermore, we have a direct hit. If this holds, the rules for a direct hit apply, and we have the potential for a big move down. Recall that it's very unusual for a mejt ultimate signal to give just the minimum. Therefore, we have some optional targets that if this holds, we're apt for a big move down, which could go not necessarily on the gap, but could take us to 2052.87. This is a pattern which typically closes near the day's low, and when it does not close near the day's low, it's normally quite positive unless we gap under the low of the day Monday. In conflict with that, we have a rallying all the rest of the day, and we couldn't overtake this high or any of these other highs. That is negative unless we have a gap over this high. So we have a good chance of having a gap outside of the day's range. Now, which direction should the gap be in? Well, here's the diamond on stilts pattern. When we had the stilts, we had this big area of a gap, and the market likes to fill those gaps with a consolidation, either before or, in this case, after the gap takes place. All we did today was to play Fibonacci ping pong between the 38.2 and 61.8% levels of this up move from late last month. This is a pretty important trend line I've mentioned quite a few times. One of my rules, which I mentioned yesterday, was that if we drop in a straight line, we tend to retrace to that trend line. We retraced right to the trend line, bounced off the Fibonacci support, just played Fibonacci ping pong all day and closed under the FOMC announcement price. This is a rally on low volume, which did just what it had to do to satisfy the minimum expectations for a pullback and couldn't do any more than that. Of the last 9 days, the 6 down days all have had better volume than the 3 up days. For those reasons, I think a gap over this high is pretty unlikely. I look for a gap under today's low. If this count is correct, and if we gap under today's low, there's a chance we could have a recovery because that would complete 5 waves down. It wouldn't necessarily be the end of Purple C. It could be just the first of 5 waves of Purple C. We don't really know at this time. So I think Monday's open is going to be interesting. What I would like to see is a gap down under today's low, hit 2052.87 or lower early in trading, followed possibly, but not necessarily, in the same day by a recovery back up to at least 2070.36. And that is today's call.